Welcome back to the Happy Hour, guys, and welcome to the Four Roses Distillery.
That's right, the beautiful Four Roses Distillery in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. Four Roses is back and with a vengeance, making some of the most incredible bourbons we have ever tasted. Where did they go? Well, that's why we're calling this episode The Prodigal Son Returns.
So why Four Roses? Way back in the 19th century, the original owner, Paul Jones, proposed to the object of his affections. There was a dance that night, and she said if the answer was yes, she would arrive wearing roses. She said yes. His undying love for her spilled over, pun intended, into the naming of his distillery. Thus, Four Roses.
Mark and I were incredibly lucky to have as our guide at Four Roses the master distiller and a real rock star in the bourbon industry, Jim Rutledge. Jim was actually in the first class to be inducted into the Bourbon Hall of Fame and has been in the whiskey industry as of 2011 for 44 years. So why are we calling this the Prodigal Son? Well, Four Roses, the brand, was established in 1888 and this beautiful distillery was built in 1910. And thanks in part to Al Young's book, Four Roses, The Return of a Whiskey Legend, we have these great images from the 1930s, 40s, and 50s when Four Roses was #1.
And then after Prohibition was repealed, Four Roses quickly was the #1 selling bourbon in the U.S.
And when you're #1, you attract a lot of attention. So in 1943, Four Roses was bought by the Seagram's Company. And for some inexplicable reason, in 1948, Seagram's decided to sell Four Roses bourbon overseas only, and to use the name Four Roses in the States for, well, something else. A blended whiskey product that became associated here in the States with something, well, not so good.
There was, we were talking earlier, constant debate, myself and the Seagram marketing people, when you're going to get rid of the blended whiskey and let us bring our bourbon back home to the U.S.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it took Seagram going out of business. Kirin jumped in and ended up buying it. We had been, and we still are, the #1 selling bourbon in Japan. The chairman of Kirin was with him on the initial visit. He bowed and said, Jim-san, next time I see you in Tokyo.
So Kirin purchased the company in 2002, and at that point, Four Roses was no longer just an export only, but was allowed to come home to the United States. But now that they're back on the U.S. market, what is it that makes these bourbons so special?
We as an industry aren't really doing anything different than we used to do, except now we're showcasing what we can do with the premium brands.
Yeah.
We have 2 grain recipes. Both of them are very high rye content. It gives Four Roses a bit of spiciness, full body flavor. But with the 2 grain recipes, that gives us 2 flavors. With the 5 yeast strains and 2 mash bills, we have 10 unique flavors, 10 recipes.
Now, to our knowledge, nobody else does anything like this, using different yeasts and different mash bills to get different flavors.
Light, delicate fruitiness, spice, a floral, more of a rich, full body. Oh my, I felt like I was surrounded by honeysuckle.
It's artistry.
Absolutely, Mark, because all those moving parts give Mr. Rutledge an incredible amount of flexibility when he's putting together his bourbons, including their flagship yellow label, one of Mark's favorites, the small batch, and even the single barrel.
As you're seeing, when I say we have an infinite number of ways to get different recipes, we never have to do the same thing twice. But yet the fun part, and you mentioned art, the fun part, like when we were in the fermenter room or with the yeast, and you using the senses to look at the top of a fermenter and taking, you know, cupfuls of, you know, in your hand to smell the aromas and feeling it, touching it, the temperature and tasting it. That's arts that will never go away. What counts is what you, the aromas you smell, what you taste, because our palates are different.
Right. Well, to follow up on our rock star analogy from Bourbon Hall of Fame, yes, this was their first album in the United States after a short period away. This was their first album, and it was filled with top 10 hits. And everybody's always afraid that the second album you're gonna have your sophomore slump.
Right, you're not gonna follow up well.
Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. Certified rock star. Platinum.
So if you have a chance to hit the bourbon trail and get to this beautiful distillery in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky, definitely do it. But more than that, the next time you're in the bar, try a Four Roses bourbon. You will not be disappointed. So many thanks to Jim Rutledge, Karen Kushner, and all the folks at the Four Roses Distillery for their incredible hospitality. And we can't wait to come back here. We can't wait to see you guys next time. Cheers. Drink bourbon. You'll like it.
Let's get inside and hear the story. It's Four Roses.